The cut splice. This is another way of splicing the ends of two lines together. Very similar to a short splice, but basically we're going to be offsetting the short splice. So rather than having the two lines joined and spliced directly into each other, we're going to offset this joint a little bit. And you can offset it really as much as you need to. And so once we've offset where these joints are going, we're going to splice one line into the other using an identical method to doing it in I-splice to start this joining into this line here. And at the other end we're going to do the same thing. Another, essentially like doing an I-splice coming down here. And what that's going to do is create a little aperture here. So this will be one splice beginning here, one splice beginning here. And when the line pulls tight, they'll lay alongside each other, but it'll create a little eye right in the middle of the rope, where you can attach another line to it, or if this is going to be placed maybe over the end of a spar and be able to pull in one direction or another. It's a way of doing it. It's called a cut splice, and using a very similar technique. And I'm not going to show this fully, because I think once I show you the cut splice, you'll be able to do this equally as well. Imagine that we have this is a very small awning, so some fabric here, maybe surrounded in a rope, or if this would have originally been used on square rig ships. So this being the sail, trimmed right around with rope sewn to it, you could do what essentially amounts to a cut splice. They're often called earring splices or earring cringles. Rather than putting a hole in here in a grommet, which is a weak point. Anytime you put a hole in the fabric in a grommet, the grommet tends to want to pull out of the fabric. So rather than putting a pull on this weak portion in here, we'll put a pull on the strong portion, on the rope that's surrounding the fabric, by splicing in along here, leaving a bit of a bite, and splicing in and down here, and use this strong piece of rope as a cringle or a grommet. If you leave a little bit more material here, you can then whip this tightly closed, seize it closed, and finish your awning or sail using the pull here that gets transmitted along the strong part of the rope, rather than using a grommet. So to do a cut splice, then basically we're going to go here, do an I-splice coming along, and I guess we'll offset these a bit more, and start in here, and an I-splice this way. So I'll get myself set up to do that, and we'll come back and get started. Okay, so we're ready to start our cut splice. While we're here, I guess I'll show you in a little bit more detail the difference between a cut splice and a normal short splice. So I've used some black tape here just so you can more easily see where the end of the line is going to be and the splice begins on each piece. So of course with a short splice, we would marry these pieces of line together so that their ends were about here. We'd immediately start to splice and splice down the line here, and exactly the same thing in the other direction. And so these lines would be, their bitter ends would be directly attached, and that's where the splice would happen. With this cut splice, we're going to offset that a little bit. And so the black tape will show you where the offset would happen. And so in this case, we'll cut this one in here and start splicing down. We'll cut this side in here and start splicing along. And that's going to give us our aperture. And just depending on how far you offset things, you can have a larger or a smaller aperture. Now the way you start these splices is identical to the way that you would do an I-splice. So I'm not going to force you to sit through what we've already seen before. I'll just get them started on one side, I'll get it started on the other, and then we'll come back and show you the completed splice. So for details on on doing the eye splice and basically on how things are getting started here, you can just go back and review the section on eye splicing. It's basically identical. So we'll just get this one side started. Of course, whipping would be a little bit neater than the black electrical tape, but that'll do for now and hopefully make it a little bit easier to see. So that's basically starting the splice in this direction. And so of course I would just, we've got one full tuck in, and we'd continue down 5 tucks and then finish as you see fit with tapering or whipping or that kind of thing. And we could of course go 7 or more if you needed additional strength. So once we got the one side in, we'll come back and do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to cut this in, and essentially starting the exact same way that you would with an eye splice. There's 2 of them, and here's number 3. Okay, so of course we would then continue splicing down in the normal fashion. And you can see how the 2 lines have now attached. Their ends are offset a little bit, and now we've got an aperture. We can attach another line to it. We can put this around a block or around a spar, or use it as a handle, that kind of thing. So we'll come back in a moment when I've completed these, and we'll have our cut splice. Okay, so here's our completed cut splice. So you can see I've completed 5 tucks on both sides, and from here you could just trim and melt and whip, or if you leave yourself enough length here, of course you can do a taper as well. So you can finish this in a number of different ways. So you can see we've got our nice little aperture, nice little splice down there. When tension comes on this, of course, this will want to squeeze together and close, and both sides will take the tension. And you can, as I was saying, you can put this around a spar or around a block, or attach another line to it. You could also, for imagining, I hadn't really built it this way, but if we were imagining this being a sail or an awning, if we left one side a little bit longer, we can make a nice cringle out here, and so attach a rope here rather than through a grommet on the inside. And that would be called an earring splice, or an earring cringle. But in this form here, it's called a cut splice.